Welcome and thank you for joining me on what is my first Zoom/podcast for Home News Now and IFRA. And I've been writing columns telling you what I think, and I think we need to do more than that. And so what I would like to do is a series of discussions with industry people that I hold in very high regard. And one of them I'm staring at the other end of the screen today, Tom Erdman of Handy Living. Tom, the reason I really wanted to ask you to join me for this first one, and this is not gratuitous, you're probably one of the smartest guys I know about the industry and most well-rounded. You've had retail stores. I think you've either repped in the past or you really are familiar with the repping. You know retail, and you are currently with a supplier, manufacturer, importer, and so you've touched every segment of the business. But tell the audience who may not know you just a little bit about who you are and what you've done.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to be your first, Ray. This is you and I have been friends for a long time, and it didn't feel gratuitous, so I'll just leave it at that.
All right, good.
I'll let the world know I generally am not out in the open that much, but I've been in the business since 1979, and the rep world was part of my world for probably 15 years or so. But I've done various things. I actually owned a trucking company and distribution company for the furniture industry that was started just after deregulation in the early 80s. And so I got my feet wet in there, and then worked with some people who I feel are or were leaders in the industry, forward thinkers and things like that. And then in 2005, I noticed a lot of stuff ending up at my doorstep by having kids, and they were ordering online, and I interviewed my own kids to find out what was going on, and found out that the internet was a thing, and that e-commerce was a thing, and thought, something, I'm going to dip my toe in this and see what happens.
So when was it year-wise that you first really got immersed into the e-com side of the business?
Right about then, right at I had I've managed to fail at a lot of things. Anyway, I had a manufacturing company that was servicing the internet, but I was failing on the manufacturing side, but the sales side worked pretty well. So I found out I needed to look at things a little differently, source differently, and move in a direction, but the direction was the correct direction. So found a partner in Ken Schoenfeld and Handy Living, and he bought my company for a very cheap price. And we ended up starting end of 2005, but really, nothing happened until 2006, 2007, something like that.
Well, you've been in the enviable position. You're one of the few people I know that really limits who they want to do business with in terms of the e-com guys, right? I mean, you've turned business away.
Yeah, we've turned away more than we've accepted. Now, in hindsight, I wish I would have accepted more, but the e-commerce business is different than bricks and mortar, because you're really the retailer. The e-commerce vendor, the Wayfair's, Overstocks, Costco's, and so on and so forth, they're working from my inventory, not their own inventory. So they're really the conduit to the consumer. So the more you take on, the more inventory you have to carry, and the more overhead you have. So you have to be very careful how you operate in that. You can get upside down very, very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the new year that is unfolding in front of us. As you know, last year was a 180-degree flip from the year before, when at one point we had all these consumers in the store. They got 3 stimulus checks. They all ran out because they were stuck at home for a year, bought furniture. I think a lot of retailers thought this was going to be the new normal, ordered stuff that didn't get here for a while. Suddenly, the end of last year, at least from where I sat, was all that inventory came home, and there was more to sell than there were consumers to sell it to.
Yeah, there's an even bigger story than that, and that is, in order to supply over the last 2 years, you had to spend a lot in logistics. And so you were not buying cheap inventory and you weren't making more money. What we were trying to do is stay above water with our customers to make sure that they had product, and profit kind of went by the wayside. So, in today's world, as we look at 2023, we've got a warehouse full of expensive stuff, and with prices coming down. So we have to make some decisions as to how much of a beating we're going to take on that inventory in order to get back to normal. So it's been an interesting ride for a couple of years.
Yeah, and Tom, would it be fair to say when you say we, that's larger than Handy Living, that's we, the industry, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. The industry has to recalibrate to a everybody says new normal, and I guess we have to just call it normal, and determine what that is. For instance, margins have been kind of given up, and you'll see it in a lot of financial reports and companies in e-commerce and bricks and mortar. And so, our objective is to try and hold on to a little margin as prices come down, and make sure that we're paying the bills. And so, this has been a pretty difficult period.
Well, we saw in the fourth quarter holiday season, a lot of the major retailers just basically slashing prices. They had a lot of excess inventory. They tried to clean it up before the year end. I mean, it was so crazy that in some cases, Target and Walmart were telling people, hey, don't return the item, just keep it. It was costing them more to handle it and deal with returns. So now we've got this new year. From where you see it, are we still in a position of being over inventoried? And if we are, when do we get down to fighting weight again? And how do we get down to fighting weight?
Yeah, that's a difficult question because we do have too much inventory, and in a lot of cases, it's the wrong inventory. We were waiting for our top selling items to come back in. Things were slow. COVID messed up with manufacturing in Asia and the United States, and the ocean thing just created this perfect storm of negativity, I guess, for logistics. And so I think we've got a little bit of a battle in front of us to get to a place where we're comfortable with where we are. And I think that would hold true if you look at Target, if you look at our peers. We're all in the same boat. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And really, the objective today is to turn that, I don't want to call it bad inventory, but not the inventory we really want, into cash, so we can turn it into good inventory so that we can get the flywheel spinning again.
A couple of the news services reported last week, China had its largest outbreak of COVID in a single day. I think they said it was some crazy, almost unbelievable number, like 30 something million in a day. So from where I'm sitting, I almost feel like as long as China is ill, our supply chain is still going to have hiccups. Am I being an alarmist?
No, I think you're correct. I saw your column today, and it was 37 million, I think is what you wrote, and it's more than the 10 largest cities in the United States combined.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah, and the numbers are just crazy. But we placed tariffs on Chinese goods. China kind of deflated, but what we fail to remember is that most of the parts and most of the elements that create furniture are from China. So if you're looking for a nut or a screw or a fabric or
glass, aluminum, any of that,
everything. And so, that's been disrupted to a great degree. And we saw pretty great inflation also during this period, not just here, but over there. It was significant.
Now, despite that, there's always the handful of smart people that move forward during chaotic, turbulent times. Do you see any single thread that's running across all of companies that are kind of getting better, getting faster, getting leaner? I know you and I talked a while back about the growing need to have this seamless, frictionless supply chain. What?
Yeah, that's a constant thing we work on, is how to take friction out of the supply chain and get more vertical and reduce inventories and all of that. Any dollar spent that isn't on the product itself is a wasted dollar. And so, we have to find ways to make things come into the supply chain quickly, smaller boxes, lighter, whatever it is we have to do to engineer the product, we have to do better in order to survive. And then, on the buying side, the people with good balance sheets are going to be able to capitalize during this period, while people without such good balance sheets are going to struggle, because you have to have some power. And that we have a common interesting person. I think he lives in Tampa right now, who uses his power very well and dominates the top 100. And I think that those kind of folks are going to be okay.
Good. Now, you have particular expertise. You visit stores, but you also are the e-com guy. Now, e-com sales, while had been growing pretty healthy year after year, the numbers I've seen recently, like everybody else, they're kind of slowed, stalled. What do you think the outlook is for e-com, for home furnishing sales, and brick and mortar, and the blended strategy? If you looked at like the three ways that product could get to consumer, what's your call?
Yeah, I think e-commerce is gonna it's gonna have challenges. I don't want to say it's going to struggle. I think it's going to be challenging. The intra country shipping right now is getting so expensive. Trucking of product and all of that sort of stuff. It's really adding a layer we hadn't considered the way we do today. So that's going to be problematic. And I'm when I go shopping, I try to find operators who are really efficient at getting goods through their facilities. And I don't want to name names because then I'm going to leave somebody out. But there are particular operators who have honed in on a square footage strategy, a velocity strategy, a pricing strategy that seems to work. And those guys are doing well. And I shop them at least once a month to see how it's going. The bigger footprint stores are going to struggle a little bit more, just because it's difficult to maintain inventories of very, very broad assortments. Although they're going to see traffic because they're going to have assortment, but it's going to be more difficult to operate those businesses.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Humor me and let's just go on the basis that my assumption, what I'm about to say, is mostly true. My feeling is that consumers don't shop for furniture the way they do for other consumables. We all know that the statistics, depending upon which statistics you look at, it's this amount of years or this amount of years. I feel we got our bread buttered with those stimulus checks, that coupled with people having to stay at home, looking at the furniture, just being pissed off at everything and decided to hate the sofa too. So now that we've come out of that, there doesn't seem to be stimulus money coming. Is there an opportunity? How do we get the consumers to think about what we are selling versus other things like, electronics? Or how do we get them back in the store or get them back online? What do we do to not have to wait 3 years until they want to look at us again?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. I wish I had that answer, but I don't. I'm looking around, and I do car counts outside of stores to see how many people are in, and all of that sort of stuff. And right now, price is king the way it looks. People are trading down, and they're excited by price. Whatever the deal is. We have a friend in Houston who likes to bet, and get people in for the possibility of getting something free. There's any number of ways, but just the static make your home nicer is a difficult message right now. And we're trying to find those answers ourselves. So maybe if you've got that answer, maybe you can let me know.
If I had it, I would share it. So this leads me to another question. Even before the what hit the wall, there was kind of a sense that there were a number of industry participants, both on the retail side and supply side, that were kind of living paycheck to paycheck. So
Yeah.
as we go through this period where sales are down, costs are up, do you think we're going to see some of these guys have to let go and float away?
Yeah, I think that's going to happen. And then the other shoe on this thing is retirements of people in smaller operations. You're beginning to see store counts go down because the kids don't want to take over the parents' dream. It isn't their dream. And I'm from Wisconsin. I know a couple of retailers who I know personally who they're just going out. It's not because business is terrible. It's not great, but it isn't what the kids want to do. And so, we need to find that new talent. You've got a son who's kind of in that age group where we would look for them to take over an operation, and it's just hard to find. So, we're consolidating a little bit as an industry.
Well, that kind of brings home the challenge of getting younger people into the industry at every level. I mean, we're struggling to get younger people wanting to come in as reps. The knock on retail is, I don't want to work those long hours in the manufacturing. There's people there. So if these smaller stores that are fundamentally sound go by the wayside because the kids don't want them and they can't sell them to anybody, do the big win by default? I mean, like, is it while they're expanding anyway, is that kind of a windfall for them?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a windfall, but it's certainly additional business. I was looking at for some reason, I don't know why. I was looking at the 2002 Furniture Today Top 100, and there was only one retailer. They're out of Florida, who had $1 billion of sales. Today there are 21. So that tells me that the cream is rising, and that the sales are going to a smaller group, because on the Home News Now top 125, number 125 was $31 million, which was below the top 100 number 20 years ago. So that just tells you that sales are going to a smaller group of people, and I think that's going to continue.
I agree. There's a lot of cause to say, geez, we're looking over our shoulder. Looks like rain, but what are the opportunities for this industry in the next 11 months and maybe the year after that? There's always got to be opportunities. Where do you think this industry can make some headwinds?
Wow. I wasn't prepared for that question.
I just came and my pointed little head.
My sense is that we have to follow the consumer a little better. And back in the 1980s, People Lounger, can't remember his name, but he came up with a reclining sofa. That was an interesting product. It lived the way people wanted to live, and now it's dominating retail floors. And I think part of that is because the reclining sofa or the reclining sectional is part of a entertainment or comfort or cocooning kind of thing. And I think that if we can latch onto that even more, turn your Lovesac, for instance, is selling sectionals, I think that's what they call them, with sound systems in them. And they're making it an interesting purchase and a kind of a want to purchase instead of a have to purchase. And I think we need to find those want tos, whatever it is. It could be music, it could be surround sound, it could be power, it could be, I don't know what. But if we can add things that add to a consumer's lifestyle or comfort, I think that that's probably where it is.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I kind of liken it to, I'm dating myself, but look at my face. Who else would date me? But having said that, I remember, I worked in an office in Manhattan and we got our first fax machine. It was weird. It was unknown. And then within a day, it was like, geez, how did we live without this?
Yeah.
So maybe our opportunity is to find furniture's version of the fax machine, to have the consumer say, how did I live without this?
Yeah, I think, my first fax machine was about 40 pounds and a thermal
Yeah.
paper and ridiculously slow, but it created instant communication. And yeah, we got to find those kind of things, disruptive things, Steve Jobs, with the iPhone. He made a company that's larger than our entire industry by a lot. So yeah, we've got to figure out a way to make our home the centerpiece of our life and not the automobile, although the automobiles are nice and things like that. So find those disruptive things.
Good, disruptive. That's perfect. That's a great word. Look, I don't want to get the reputation as the sunshine boy, but I kind of want to end this on a positive note. Let's take a look at retailers, both online, brick and mortar, and omni-channel. What's the opportunity for retailers? What's maybe one or two things they could do to better position themselves this year?
Well, your columns are kind of leading toward that, which is learning how to communicate with their consumer and having a more empathetic position where the consumer comes through the door instead of feeling or thinking or operating like, well, how am I going to sell you something? It's more, how am I going to help you? How do I solve your problem? And I think as we do more of that, we become more successful. I know that, not in my personal world, I don't want to be sold anything. I want to decide myself, but I want the information to make the proper decision. And then I think we need to search for something other than gray or tan or something
Right.
like that. My history is I wear ridiculous shirts and we made ridiculous looking furniture and all that sort of stuff. But we were trying to uplift people, in the process, give them a ray of sunshine. I've always told people, I said, when you want to feel great, where do you go? Most people go outside because it's nice and it's pretty and all of that stuff. Well, bring that into your home and figure out a way to, bring the outside in, bring some of that feeling and attitude. And I think that'll help.
Perfect analogy. Now, kind of the same question to the manufacturer, and I guess you could say what you just said about the retailers is applicable too, but any kind of supplier manufacturer specific advice, something that they might do, maybe one or two things they could do to brighten their outlook.
Yeah, I have a lot of admiration for a lot of the suppliers out there that are doing what they do. Generally speaking, they're world class and they do a good job and they're trying to help their retailer through a process. And at the end of the day, I think they just have to do what they do and do it better and try to improve, try to make it easier for the retailer. And that you can give them net never terms too. I think retailers like that, where they don't have to pay for the goods, but it's just going to be a process. I think that, I would like to see more color and more interest and things like that. But at the end of the day, everybody has to run their business and they have to make sure that they cover those things that people want.
Good. Now, last but certainly not least, the messenger that often gets shot, the rep. Right now, I think he's between the rock and the hard place because things are tough with his retail customers. Things are tough with his or her factories. You and I have talked about the role of the rep before. What do you think they need to do to be better partners to both retailer and factory?
Oh, that's a book. But I think the biggest thing that a rep can do is be the most informed person in the room. To know when they make a sales call on a retailer, to really intimately know that retailer. I know for my purposes, I'm not even selling regular retailers, and I'm walking those floors trying to understand what it is they're trying to do. And I think for a rep to walk in and say, I'm going to sell you something today, is not the right answer. I think it has to be a relationship that you have to help that retailer through their problem. And it's through information, it's through networking, it's through any number of things, but you have to be a partner, not a salesman. And when you become a partner, then you become part of their business. I think if they see you as somebody walking through the door who's not part of their business, I think you failed. And at the end of the day, they got to want to see you. They got to want to call you. I remember when I was a rep, I used to get calls all the time from retailers. What do you think? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? If you're not getting those calls, it isn't working for you. You got to find a way. And Ray, I just sent you an article from a real estate agent out our way about making 5 contacts a day. And it doesn't have to be a sales contact, but just a contact to let people know you're interested. And it can't be phony. It has to be genuine. And you check in on people and you make sure they're okay, and you visit their stores. And if you're there, they'll buy from you. But if you don't do that, there's no reason for them to want to do business with you. So I think you need to take care of your retailer as much as you can. And technology and all of that sort of stuff, it's all part of it, but in the end, it's about contact and about being there all the time and consistent and things like that. And that just takes time.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you taking time. You and I could talk for hours, but I want to keep this short enough where people can listen to it. And I've been accused as always having to have the last word. So because you're my friend and because you're smarter than me, I'm going to say, any last thoughts from you before we wrap it up?
Yeah. Do you have any music for us that you want us to hear?
Oh boy, so much. I've been lately going back to Eva Cassidy, and just what an incredible singer. So yeah, anybody out there who has not listened to Eva Cassidy, give her a listen. She was amazing.
Yeah, I always enjoy that stuff when you post it.
All right, good deal. That and pictures of Izzy doing gymnastics, right?
Exactly.
All right, Tom, thank you so much for your time, and this was really great stuff. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Ray.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.